What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is AkeemHaynes. I'm a two-time Olympic bronze medalist, author, motivational speaker, and sports commentator. On my channel, we talk boxing, MMA, track and field, and of course, motivation and encouraging content. If this is something that you enjoy, then I hope that you subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into the video. Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. What do we think about this fight? Let's get into it now. To be honest, I wasn't even going to do this one, but I've been seeing the comments. A lot of people have said, Akeem, can you touch on it? A lot of people have reached out to me personally and say, Akeem, can you touch on it? So here we are. Let's touch on this. So I have to say this. I can appreciate and even respect what Jake Paul has been doing for the sport of boxing. He's been bringing in different eyes to the sport. More eyes means more money, right? He's been doing a pretty good job with the management of Amanda Serrano. He's been getting her some big paydays and some pretty big fights, and that's always good. Now, I don't know much about Jake Paul. I don't follow Jake Paul, but his heart seems to be in the right place. Now, his boxing. He's been getting better, right? I didn't pay much attention to him beating Nate Robinson. He should beat Nate Robinson. He's got every advantage over him. I also thought that he should knock out Ben Askren. Ben Askren didn't look like he was in any type of shape to fight. He's not a boxer, right? Especially in MMA. He's been more of a ground grappling wrestler type of guy, his MMA career. So no surprise there for me personally. Now, when he fought Tyron Woodley, not the first time, but the second time, and how he won that fight, I was like, okay, Jake, you got a little something here. That right hand is legit. He does have power in that shot. I want to paint the picture for everything so we can bring it to the table as we break this fight down. And I'm sure many of you are going to place some bets on it. And I want to give you the whole piece of the pie so you can make the best calculated decision and pick for yourself. Now, Jake Paul and his team are very strategic in how they pick their opponents. Now, when he fought Ben Askren, right, he took a guy who isn't a striking guy, who was coming off 2 back-to-back losses. Then he fought Tyron Woodley, who was an MMA champion, absolutely, but he was also coming off a 4-fight losing streak. Now he's taking on Anderson Silva, who is 47 years old, and he is coming off his MMA career, coming off a 3-fight losing streak to end his MMA career. So this is all something to keep in mind as you're making your pick on who's going to win. I put out the losses because the losses are important. They do something to you. If you've been watching the channel, then you know I used to run track and field. I've been to 2 Olympic Games and I have a bronze medal, right? My best races have came when I've had a lot of momentum, right? When I was winning race after race after race, I was getting confident, and my mannerisms was a little bit different. But there were some spans where I would lose and it would affect me, right? And guys who I should beat, I was losing to. Right? And the losses kind of mess with your head. And then you have to reset, reanalyze, gather yourself, and see how you can adjust and fix those problems moving forward. Right? So sometimes you go down the streak, you just have to push through and find different ways how to create new momentum. But the losses, they do play a toll, and they are a factor in every athletic field. Everyone Jake Paul has fought and has won, they have been in a downward spiral. If you've been on a downward spiral in one area of your life and you come into a boxing ring, that doesn't just go away. That has a way of continuing over to you. Maybe not physically, but subconsciously, it's in the back of your head. Not to mention they are much older than he is, something to keep in mind too, right? Their bodies have been worn down from the fights that they've been in different sports. And you know, MMA is a tough sport and it really breaks down your body. Jake is much fresher than his opponents in this stage in their career. So again, all things to keep in mind. Jake Paul is going to look for that one shot. He's going to look for that one right hand to close out the show. And he's got pop in that shot, right? He's been trying to jab a bit more, using feint to set up his shots, but he's looking for one shot. He'll jab to set up that overhand right, which connected often against Tyron Woodley. He didn't respect Nate or Ben Askren, but he respected Woodley, right? So he couldn't come in recklessly and as aggressive as he did with the other two. I think he'll have the same respect for Anderson Silva. He's going to try to land that one shot, I would say, within that first 4 rounds. But to me, the longer the fight goes on, the more I think it'll lean towards Anderson Silva. I think his conditioning in this atmosphere is a little bit better, even though he's the older man taking on the younger man in this fight. So let's talk about Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva as a boxer is very interesting to me. I think if he decided to box over MMA, he would honestly, in my opinion, have a similar success in his career, right? He's athletically gifted and he can do some things with ease that you can't really teach. It just comes. As a 47-year-old, right, what he's doing and how he's doing it is very impressive. How he's moving, very impressive, right? Anderson Silva has got a fighting spirit about him, and he keeps himself in great shape. He has very good foundation as a boxer. He's a very good fundamentals as a boxer. He knows how to set up his shots, uses his jab well. The straight hand is solid. His uppercut is effective. His footwork is very good. You watch him and some of the sequences and some of the combination he puts together, and you're thinking to yourself, man, wait a minute, he's 47? Right? He's going to come into this fight in shape. He took out Tito Ortiz in the first round with a nice counter and a right hand against the rope. He took the fight to Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and won that fight by split decision. I don't think Chavez Jr. took Anderson Silva very seriously in that fight, and he got upset by someone who did take the fight seriously and came in shape. And I think he was very surprised at how well and how good Anderson Silva is in the boxing ring, even at his age. In that fight, Anderson used his feet, angles, and his counter-punching sharpness to win, and that was a massive win for him. I watched the fight recently, and that was a very fun fight to watch. That's where this fight is going to be different, because Anderson Silva's movement is going to be tough for Jake Paul to deal with. He's fought flat-footed guys in his boxing career so far, and Anderson is going to give him a different look. He's going to give him something different to see that he probably really only seen during his sparring when he's bringing people in. But Anderson can do that every single round, and that's when it gets a little bit hazy, and that's when it gets a little bit difficult for Jake Paul. The other thing for Anderson Silva is throughout his fights, right, he tends to let his opponents hit him. He doesn't mind standing there and trading some shots of his own, even if it's for a couple minutes of the fight. He's not afraid to do that. If Jake Paul, if that's what he chooses to do when Jake Paul lands a clean shot, I think it's a wrap, because that man can pop, that man can throw, right? That right hand, as I said, is legit. And I think Anderson will go down if that shot does connect. But if Anderson Silva stays within himself and doesn't let him get there, he'll be able to beat Jake Paul up for 8 rounds. So on paper, you look at it, and Jake Paul, the younger fighter who hasn't been in as many wars as Anderson from a competitive fighting standpoint, he's at a disadvantage if you're just looking at it from that perspective. You look at Anderson Silva, and probably the first thing that comes to mind is, man, he looks great, but he's 47 years old. If you can look past the age, what else do you see? So if you're trying to make a bet for this fight, I bring to you 2 things. Jake Paul is 5-0 as a boxer. Anderson Silva is 3-1 as a boxer. So they're actually a lot similar in that regard on paper. The second thing is this. Jake Paul hasn't fought an actual boxer, right? Or someone who has had success in boxing, in the boxing world, whereas Anderson Silva has gotten a win against an actual boxer in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Something to keep in mind as you're making your educated pick. So who wins? My mind is telling me to go with Anderson Silva here. But my heart is telling me that Jake Paul has a plan and they have a strategy of picking fighters who are already on a downward spiral. However, Anderson Silva did win his last few fights in convincing manner. So I want to ask you, who do you think wins this fight? How do you see it going? Let me know in the comment section below. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a couple ways that you can do so. You can like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support by way of donation, you can find options in the description below. Also, my Cash App handle will be on screen as well. Any amount goes towards the growth of this channel and will be greatly, greatly appreciated. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my social media handles will be on screen as well. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video this time, then do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.